So I just really enjoyed the whole delusions.
Delusion.
I've been studying something. It's called the delusion.
It was a pretty good scene. I got to give it to him. I mean, it's
Yeah.
probably some of the best acting that's come out of this film.
It is our delusions that lead us to sin.
Okay, stop before like you get
Delusion.
like.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rewatch podcast. My name is Samuel.
And I'm Jayden.
And this is a podcast where we rewatch classic or current films and then decide whether they deserve a rewatch from you. Before we get into it, a like on this video would be most appreciated. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel by searching the Rewatch. All right, so this week we watched a new Netflix film that has come out called The Devil All the Time.
Yep.
Do you want to give us like just a quick, what are your first impressions?
I didn't watch a trailer or anything for this film, and then going into it, I was like decently excited. I mean, it's got a pretty good cast.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's obviously got people like Robert Pattinson and Tom Holland, who got me quite excited for the film. And then watching it, I'm not going to spoil anything, so I'll move more so to the plot, which I also found quite confusing. It didn't really feel like it had like a spine to like follow. Like it felt kind of like multiple stories kind of like trying to be pushed together, and it didn't quite work for me.
Okay.
But yeah, I couldn't really explain the plot because I was watching it and I was quite confused myself.
Okay, interesting. Well, I think a lot of people are going to watch this movie purely because of the cast that exists within it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have Spider-Man, we have Batman, we have Pennywise the dancing clown, but we'll get to all those elements soon. But I enjoyed the ride for sure. I really liked watching it the first time. Obviously, I haven't watched this again. I probably won't go back to it, but I enjoyed it. It was a fun ride. It was sort of like, to sort of quote Martin Scorsese, it was sort of like a theme park ride. Not really too much substance there, but I enjoyed the ride. So, all right, let's get into it. So, The Devil All the Time is a 2020 American psychological thriller that examines themes of evil, religion, and the abuse of power in rural small-town America, aka Alabama. It is based on the novel of the same name by Donald Ray Pollock, who also serves as the film's narrator. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I did not.
Yeah, so the narrator, who I thought was actually quite good, is the author of the original source material, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice to involve him. I think, who better to narrate the film than the guy who wrote the film. So it makes a lot of sense. The film was directed by Antonio Campos, and it's from a screenplay that was co-written with his brother. I've not heard of Antonio Campos before. I'm pretty sure this is his first major sort of feature film. So
yeah, same.
Nothing really to delve back into his past and see what sort of work he's known for, because this is really him coming onto the scene. So obviously, it's been released on Netflix, which means basically anyone, anywhere can watch it for free. Well, for the average subscription of Netflix.
Yeah.
It includes Tom Holland, Bill Skarsgård, Riley Keough, Jason Clarke, Sebastian Stan, Haley Bennett, Eliza Scanlen, Mia Wasikowska, and Robert Pattinson. And all of their stories obviously weave together. From the characters, who do you think was a standout out of all the cast? This is a sort of a baiting question, but who was sort of your favorite from an acting standpoint? Who stood out for you?
Probably Tom Holland's character, actually. And it was quite impressive to see him try to pull off this, I guess it's Southern American accent,
Yeah.
because obviously he's a British actor and he's done American accents, but not this heavy before.
Mm.
But no, I thought his acting role in this movie was actually quite well done.
Yeah, he was definitely a standout as well, and it was nice to see him actually do something with a bit of substance in it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, with his role as Spider-Man, there's only so much that you can do in an MCU film,
Mm.
and so it was really cool, I think, to see him sort of tackle something with a bit more depth.
Yeah, because a lot of MCU films kind of heavily rely on, the story and the CGI and the action, but this
Yeah,
film doesn't have any of that, and it's like solely dependent on how they portray that character.
yeah, yeah. And so Tom Holland, he sort of comes in at about the 40-minute mark, I said, which was, I think, a bit too late almost.
Quite late, yeah.
Yeah, so at the start, we obviously get the story of his father, who's played by Bill Skarsgård, and I thought he was actually really good as well.
Mm.
And obviously, it's hard to look at Bill Skarsgård and not see Pennywise.
Pennywise, yeah.
But I really enjoyed him as Bill. Well, Bill Skarsgård. I think it is hard not to see the dancing clown,
Yeah.
but he sort of brings this subtle insanity that obviously becomes a bit more apparent towards the end of his life.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good casting decision because it's very similar to the Pennywise
He's so
character.
used to it already that portraying that type of character must have been pretty easy.
Yeah, yeah, and he definitely nails it. So I really enjoyed Bill Skarsgård, but I think we had to wait a bit too long for Tom Holland,
Mm.
and I think we certainly probably had to wait too long for Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
Now, I think for me, Robert Pattinson was the best performer in the movie. I think Tom Holland was really good, but then as soon as Robert Pattinson came on screen, he just owned it. And I feel as though Patterson sort of had a bit more confidence than Holland.
Okay.
And as soon as the preacher came on, it was like, oh geez, Tom Holland, you're going to get shown up here. But it's not that Tom Holland's bad. I just thought that Robert Patterson was just so much better.
Yeah.
But that might be me fanboying over him because obviously I've become quite a fan.
You have.
But I also think Robert Patterson does his accent better than Tom Holland. But
I agree with that. Yeah.
that's hard for me to say because obviously we're not from small town America, so
Mm.
we're sort of not really we're sort of just going off what we think sounds the best,
Yeah.
but we don't know. Some people who are living in those sort of parts of America have said that all of the accents are pretty bad, but there's bound to be people that disagree
Yeah.
with certain things. So yeah, shall we dive into the plot? Actually, before we do, I've got some funny reviews that we want to go through.
Let's do it.
And before we do that, I want to mention the fact that we have 3 Australian actors in this movie,
Yes.
which is pretty cool. We've got to give a shout out to the Aussies.
Hmm.
So we've got Jason Clarke, who plays the photographer.
I think he was also in Jumanji, actually, if you've seen that.
Oh, really?
The
Oh,
remake,
no.
Welcome to the Jungle.
Not sure where I have seen Jason Clarke, but I have definitely seen him
He's
before.
just a familiar face,
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, he has been in quite a few things. He's been been in Terminator Genesis. Apparently, I
Mm.
probably saw him in that, but I can't really remember that movie very much.
Yeah.
It was quite rubbish. Eliza Scanlen is also in this movie. She's also an Australian actor, so shout out to her. And then Mia Wasikowska, she was on Home and Away, so
Hmm.
shout out to Home and Away. It's quite a rubbish TV show, but it gave us Chris Hemsworth, so that's okay.
Oh, was he on it?
Yeah, he was on it.
I never
That's
watched
where he
it.
started.
Oh, wow.
No, don't ever. It's complete trash.
Yeah,
But
I didn't know
you know,
that.
Australian actors have to start somewhere, and that's where Chris Hemsworth started. So
Wow.
good on him. All right. Some funny reviews here. So I've been a bit of a fan of this app called Letterboxd rather,
Yep.
and sort of allows anybody to jump on and give a star rating and a review. So obviously, when new films come out, they have their haters, they have their sympathizers. So here I saw quite a few funny ones, so I thought I'd save them for the pod. So this one is from Jai Tender. He says this movie would better be called Spider-Man Take Me Home Country Roads. So that one's pretty good. Laura writes, if you like this movie, you're probably a Trump supporter.
Oh no. They had
And
to
then
bring politics into it, didn't they?
Wes, who's got 184 likes on this one, says, finally an answer to one of my most burning questions. What would a Christian Joker look like?
Robert Pattinson's character. Oh, that's quite funny.
I don't really see the parallels between this and Joker, but I mean all the power to Wes there.
I don't know. He seems quite psychotic.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of psychopaths in this movie, that's for sure.
There's a lot of death in this movie, that's for sure.
It's very dark.
I want to talk about that, but
yeah.
Anyway.
So finally, we have Jay, who has 1,000 likes on this review, so it must have been pretty good. He gave it 2.5 stars. He said, so he's quoting the narrator here, right? As the thoughts came, he wasn't sure if he was going backwards or forwards. Christopher Nolan says, haha, nice. Get it? Because going backwards and forwards. Backwards or forwards is like Christopher Nolan has entered the chat. So there are a few funny reviews from Letterboxd. It's quite an awesome app actually, just to judge the fan reception and the critic reception to new movies that have come out, and also old movies as well. So I think it's averaging about a 3.5 stars, which is actually pretty good. It's quite hard for a film to get a 5-star rating on an average.
Yeah.
So you have movies like The Dark Knight that are like a 4.2 or 4.3 out of 5 stars. So 3.5 is not bad for Devil All the Time. All right, let's move on to our general thoughts. Like, the pros and the cons, what did you think?
Okay, so let's start with the very little pros that I had in this film. I did like the casting decision, which I've already said. And I do think that they had potential for a story, right? And I think it was quite a good story, but I think it was just executed poorly. And they probably could have improved on quite a lot of things. And I felt like this story to me was just a bit jumbled up. And I mean, the ending for me in particular was quite like inconclusive. I kind of was sitting there and I was like, wait, that's the ending? And I was also like watching the bar go across on Netflix, and it said like 10 minutes left. And obviously like credits usually goes for about 10 minutes. And I was like, wait, I haven't really had an explanation yet. What's going on? And then it ended, and I was like, oh, that was quite anticlimactic.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, usually things that stand out for me, like the music and stuff, I didn't really pick up on the music in this film because I think it was quite a sort of silent film, and I think a lot of it was just left to the actual voice lines from our actors. I don't think we got quite a lot of music in it, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, nothing special from the music department, unfortunately.
Yeah, and one thing that I did like in this movie, there was a lot of the unexpected turns it took. Like, I didn't expect a lot of this stuff to happen because I haven't read the book. And things like, killing the dog was quite a brutal sort of scene. And it was quite, made me think like, wow, that was quite ballsy of, the film studio to make that decision in doing that. But yeah, that's about all I can say for this film.
Yeah, I completely agree with your negatives on that one. For me, like in terms of pros, I think the pacing in this movie was quite good. And for those who don't know what I mean by pacing, it essentially means that, there's no sort of parts in the movie where it drags particularly. Let me rephrase, okay? there's not a lot of times in this movie where I looked on my phone, and by that I mean there's not a lot of times in the movie where the plot is going too slowly.
Okay.
Because we're jumping around between these like four different or maybe even five different groups of people. It's quite interesting because as soon as you're done with one character, you're quickly switched over to another character. And while I think that does come in to hurt the movie later on, I think it holds your attention quite well. So that's always got to be a positive,
Yeah.
because I like the fact that a movie immerses me. It wants my attention, and I don't look at my phone. It's a good sign. I also really enjoyed the narration, obviously from the author himself. I think the narration was actually quite good, and obviously having a narrator, it allows the plot to get going quicker
Mm-hmm.
and speed things along, and also let us know what people are thinking. So it's basically a tool for exposition. Look at Christopher Nolan's movies, like in Tenet. There's a lot of the times where characters are just saying expository lines, and by that I mean lines that are only there to progress the plot and to tell the audience what is
What's
a
happening?
tenet, yeah, or
Yeah.
why bullets go backwards, everything like that. So I think that the narration's actually quite good because it just takes out the fact that the characters would then be forced to tell the audience what's going on, and I think
Mm.
having the narration is very, very easy and very slick. So I also enjoyed the performances. I really enjoyed Robert Pattinson. Tom Holland was great too. I think Sebastian Stan was also good, but
Mm.
obviously he had a lot less to do.
I think he
Um,
gained quite a bit of weight in this film as well. He looked
I
more bigger.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I think it maybe some handing from makeup, but
Yeah.
I don't know. He does look a lot bigger. He certainly doesn't look like Bucky from
Yeah, for
Winter
sure. Yeah.
Soldier. So yeah, so I really enjoyed performances across the board. I don't think anybody was particularly bad.
Yeah.
Um, and so moving on to cons for me, a lot of people have said that there's too many celebrities in this movie, and it takes away from the actual, the realism or anything like that. But
Mhm.
I didn't really mind. The fact that Robert Pattinson and Tom Holland were in it actually made me watch it. So, you know, I also didn't like the editing in this movie. I'll come back to this in more detail later on, but there is some
Mhm.
awful editing at one stage.
Okay.
So I really didn't like that.
Oh,
And the
wait,
fact,
wait. I think I might know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
The, so we had to wait 40 minutes for Tom Holland, which is sort of a drag considering the he's the main
Yeah, I
character,
would say he's the
and
main
then
character. Hmm.
yeah, and also all of the marketing is around him.
Yeah.
It starts with him, it ends with him. It's all about Tom Holland's
You see
character,
him
but
on
then
the poster. Yeah.
he doesn't show up until 40 minutes in, which is actually quite a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think obviously this movie juggles a lot of different stories and interweaves them, which is sort of you know the whole premise of the movie is that the devil's everywhere. The the problem with that is that we never really spend enough time with a certain character or characters to really understand why they're doing what they're doing and really get invested in their emotional journeys. And so, therefore, I think the movie's quite shallow.
Yeah.
And also, like, what are the odds of our boy Arvin meeting his new preacher is a psychopath?
Mm.
He does some things. He runs away. Obviously, spoiler free at the moment, and then he goes on a hitchhike. Like he needs somebody to give him a lift. And oh, what are the odds? The people who are giving him a hitchhike are also psychopaths. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it, and oh, the sheriff in the town is also a psychopath. It's like, come on, like what?
It did seem a bit, you know, uh, out of the blue. It
Yeah,
didn't.
almost.
Yeah.
I don't. It's just not really realistic, really.
Yeah. It's like the
There's
whole town was
psychopaths everywhere.
insane.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and if that was the actual premise, then that's fine. But you got to give us a reason why that is.
Yeah.
It's not. Sure, this is post-war, but not everyone in this story went to war. In fact, it was only Arvin's dad. So
Mm.
I don't know. I think it was a bit shallow, and obviously, like I just kept thinking, like, what are the odds of this happening?
Yeah.
Like poor Arvin, but yeah. So that was my general thoughts.
Yep.
All right, so that sort of is going to conclude our spoiler-free section. Jayden, do you think would you recommend this movie to the current listener who hasn't seen it?
No. Look, everyone has their own opinion, and obviously don't be put off by what I say, because I could have a completely different, movie liking than to what you have. Um, I've never really been into these sort of small movies. Um, I don't know. I wasn't really on board with this, so I wouldn't recommend it. But what do you think? What should this be recommended to our audience?
I think definitely it deserves a a first watch. Like
There you go. Okay.
I think I really enjoyed watching it for that first few because you don't really know what's going to happen, and sometimes that can actually be a bad thing. But in this instance, I really enjoyed watching it and going on the ride with Arvin. But I do think it's not the best movie to ever come out. But in terms of a Netflix movie, do you think this is one of the best movies on Netflix?
Um, I'm just trying to think what other Netflix exclusives I've watched. Um,
There's
Definitely not. I'm not going to say this is the best one because I didn't like this film. Um, I'm just trying to think what other Netflix films I've watched before.
there's so much trash on Netflix. I will say that. Like in terms
Yeah.
of Netflix movies that have been made by Netflix, like sure, you've got some of the greatest movies of all time on the Netflix platform, but they weren't actually made by Netflix. Like they weren't produced by the company Netflix. So
Mm-hmm.
movies like The Irishman would be up there. Obviously, Martin Scorsese movie that came to Netflix and was
Yeah.
produced by the company. So, but in terms of Netflix movies, I think this one is actually one of the best. And I've seen a lot of
Oh wow.
mediocre Netflix movies. And for a movie like this is going to come to Netflix, it's not going to be anywhere else. To have the cast that it does and the performances that it does, and I think it's a pretty decent story. So I'd recommend it, but I will caveat that with saying that this movie is very disturbing at one stage.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a horror movie, but
It's a thriller.
yeah, and there's some very disturbing things in this movie. I
I
can
I was gonna
prob-
say I've watched American Psycho, and I think you have as well. And
yeah,
for anyone that's watched American Psycho, it's kind of similar to that in a way, where it's like that sort of gruesome, but it's not really horror. If you know what I
yeah,
mean? Yeah,
yeah. I watched American Psycho for the first time last week, and it was bloody amazing.
I
I
love that film.
absolutely
Yeah,
loved that film.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, this movie it doesn't have the dark humor element that American Psycho does. It's not a funny movie at all, really. Like
yeah.
there's no jokes at all that I can think of. It takes
Mm.
itself very seriously, and there's one shot in this movie of a dog, and my gosh, that was really really bad. So
Yeah.
if you're maybe you don't like horror movies, you get scared easily or whatever, and you don't want to see a dog you know in a bad situation, then maybe don't watch it. But
Just skip past that part. You'll
yeah,
know when it's coming as well.
oh, it's so disturbing. But yeah, I think on the basis, if you have Netflix, check this out.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say no.
Yes, but no.
Well, yes, and I was gonna start off by saying, like I said before, this movie has so much death in it, and in the first
Mm,
20 minutes, like I think I counted like 5 or 6 deaths.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I saw Roy made the sixth death, and then Arvin also killed 2 bullies. I think it looked pretty
Mm.
brutal, and
Oh, I
that
don't think
brought
he
the
killed. No, he didn't kill them. He just
he
like
didn't kill
almost
them.
killed them. He
Okay.
he did what like Batman does. He like I won't kill you, but your hospital bill will. So
Yeah, yeah. You'll just live in misery for the rest of your life.
with severe brain damage, but I didn't kill you, so I'm a good person.
Yeah, but there was like so much death in the first throughout the film actually, so much
Yeah.
death. at least over 10 people died.
Can I just
Probably
say,
more.
remember when Joker was about to come out and you had
Yeah.
all these Hollywood weirdos saying, this movie glorifies violence. It's a dangerous movie because we follow a psychopath who just does not have a clue about the goodness in society, and he's such a bad person, and he commits all these horrible crimes. We can't watch this movie. We can't have it. And where are they now? Where are they
Yeah.
now?
Look
I
at this
don't
film. This
I don't
film
hear
is
them.
like 20 times worse.
I hear nothing from the Hollywood weirdos.
They've
Probably
all
because they're
gone
too
back into their cubby holes.
yeah, they're just salivating over Tom Holland, I guess. They're like, oh my gosh, the accent is so good. All right, so I'll just tell everybody, if you haven't seen this movie, we're going to get into some spoilers now. So
I think we've already started.
yes, so goodbye. All right, more detailed thoughts, spoilers. First off, the very first scene I think is a flashback to Pennywise in the Solomon Islands, and just want to give a shout out to the Solomon Islands. I've actually been there twice. It's a beautiful country. Unfortunately, obviously, they did not go to the Solomon Islands to film the part in the Solomon Islands, which is a shame. But I think it was entirely filmed in Alabama. So I mean, it's like a 20-second scene, sure, but it would have been nice for them to hop over to the Solomon Islands and film that. It would have been fantastic for the country, but, understand the fact that, they got to make it where they got to make it. But shout out to Solomon Islands. It was cool to see that. Because obviously the Pennywise has been to war. He was in the Pacific War, it seems like, or Vietnam. So that was the first scene, and we see quite a disturbing picture in that first scene, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
With the cross, and someone's been nailed to the cross, and they're experiencing things that are perhaps worse than death.
That scared me so much when you find out that he's actually still alive. Like, I was sitting there in my room. It was like completely dark because it was like nighttime,
yeah,
and I was like just minding my own business, not really like watching the film, and I wasn't really paying attention. And then I heard this, like he made this weird sound, and I was like, "Oh my god, that scared the living daylights out of me."
He's still alive. Yeah. So I'll stop saying Pennywise. The character's name is Willard, played by Bill Skarsgård. So that's sort of like the first half an hour of the film is sort of seeing Willard's journey to become this psychopath.
Yeah, and it's things like that in the film, right? Where it's like didn't really explore his character any more further on in the film, and they kind of just like left that like thread kind of loose, and they didn't pick up on it. And it's things like that where it's like the story was kind of like I said before, it was inconclusive, and it left me kind of feeling empty in a way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to note that obviously Willard is in a cafe at one stage, and he meets his future wife, who I think is played by Haley Bennett, and Haley says to him, "You have a nice face," and obviously we're talking about Pennywise here, so I just wanted to.
You said you wouldn't call him Pennywise.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going back on that.
Willard.
I said I've written here. It's Pennywise! Exclamation mark. Pennywise, pretty hot though. You have a nice face. And then I wrote, tell that to little Georgie in his paper boat. So Pennywise, I don't think he has a very nice face, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure the Skarsgårds are actually very involved in cinematic in the movie industry because I think his dad also plays. I think it's Bill's. No.
Oh, is that the guy who has been in Mamma Mia?
Yeah, but he's also in the Marvel. I think he's in the first Avengers. He plays that doctor who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stellan Skarsgård is his name.
Yeah. I think that's his name. Yeah.
And so he's been in things like Good Will Hunting, Mamma Mia, Thor, and all those sort of things. So he's been in quite a few.
Yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean he was in, At the World's End. Apparently he appeared in that. Deadman's Chest, but
Oh, he might have been Will's dad. The
oh yes, he was. Yeah, yeah, he
he
was.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, so that quite a big family, like the Gyllenhaals. They're
Yeah.
quite a big acting family. Um, let's move on. So I did you put subtitles on at any stage?
No, I don't think I
Yeah,
did.
because I put them on at about 10 minutes, and because of the thick accents, and I also found that this is becoming sort of a theme ever since The Dark Knight Rises. Really, actors just mumbling words.
Yeah.
It's sometimes really hard to say what
Hard to
they're saying.
follow. Yeah.
Yeah, really, sometimes very hard to hear what they're actually saying. And it's quite a plot heavy film, so you sort of want to follow. You want to get everything because it is quite shallow at the end of the day. I've got here, bruh, Church Spidey Man is crazy. Oh, that's referring to, so that's not referring to Tom Holland. That's referring to Dudley Dursley. So, the guy from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
The actor who played Dudley is in this movie. Let me find his name. Harry Melling is
Is he
Roy.
playing? Yeah, he's playing Roy, isn't he?
Yep. So he's
Oh my
Dudley
god.
Dursley, which I did not pick up on, which is pretty crazy. So
Wow.
he's the religious guy who puts the spiders all over him because he's
Yeah,
like,
he's got a
God will
lot
protect
similar.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
really big in Harry
Has
Potter.
I didn't recognize him at all, so
Hmm.
it was interesting to learn that. But we get a lot of just bloody crazy people in this movie, man,
Mm.
and I felt like a big theme in this movie was over reliance on faith and using faith to justify one's actions. People doing crazy stuff
Yeah.
and then saying it's the will of the Lord to sort of like excuse their psychopath.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a theme that I felt, and I'm completely fine with that. A lot of people have said, "Oh, this movie is essentially uh, essentially porn for atheists." So, and I can see where that point is coming from, but I think it definitely delves into the fact that these people are crazy and they're using God to sort of justify their actions or excuse
Yeah.
their actions. And we definitely see that with Willard's character, where he's praying, um, well, religiously, obviously, like every single moment of the day, almost, because he wants his wife to be saved from cancer, and he wants certain things from God, and he feels as though they will happen. He just has to make them happen. And then he excuses his behavior by going to God, and it's just it. Faith is a major part of this movie, so I feel as though Christians are not going to enjoy this very much.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I put like a potential theme of this movie is the over reliance on faith and the manipulation of faith.
I was also just gonna chuck in here because I can't stop thinking about it. Did you know that Jake Gyllenhaal's sister played Rachel in The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's
I
how
only
I
just figured that out.
Yeah, that's how I learned that the Gyllenhaals are quite a big acting family.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I looked up what happened with Katie Holmes, who plays Rachel in Batman Begins, and why she was recast and stuff. That's how I discovered that. All right, so do you want to talk about when the dog gets put on the cross, man? Like,
That was so disturbing. Oh my god.
it was really some haunting stuff, man.
Mm.
It was absolutely crazy. Obviously, there's sort of two time periods in this movie. It's so hard to explain, but
Yeah.
there's sort of a time period where Arvin is a younger boy, and Willard is so his father. Arvin's father is a sort of like a young man who's been married, obviously had kids, or
Yeah.
had a kid, and he's sort of dealing with not only the PTSD from war, but also from just various idiots in the town who are trying to banish him. Like
Mm.
they're not really welcome in their home, and so there's constant stress on this guy who also is suffering from PTSD,
Yeah.
and this leads him to do some crazy stuff. And meanwhile, we then have another storyline of did you say her name was Eleanor?
Lenora.
Lenora.
Yeah.
And so she is obviously starting to date this Roy person, who's the guy that put spiders all over his face and was like, "The God will protect me," and everyone's like, "Oh, you're just crazy, boy." Anyway, so we have those sort of two timelines at the start of the movie,
Mm.
and we get to see what happens with those two. So Willard puts a dog on the cross because he wants to save his wife,
Yeah.
because that makes sense.
It makes no sense, but
He decides that his wife has got cancer and he doesn't want his wife to die, obviously. So he goes to the cross and he's praying,
I guess it's kind of like a what do they call it?
like a
Like a
sacrifice.
sacrifice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. That's I think that's what his I think that's what he
What he
was
was
trying to
trying
do.
to do. Yeah.
And so, but the scene where he drags the dog out of the house and then obviously like shoots it, and then we don't even we don't we're never told what happens to the dog, so it's a complete surprise when we get like this 2-second shot of the dead dog on the cross, and we don't even get to see it for that long, which is good. But the fact that we see it is, and it's almost given no sort of dramatic effect. It's just like a simple shot.
Yeah.
It's not like oh, come on, audience, here we go, big scary shot coming up. Da-da. It's like just a silent. It's crazy, very haunting stuff. All right, a major flaw that I had with this movie. If we were just to move on swiftly from the whole dog getting crucified thing, don't really want to talk about that much anymore. So, with this whole Lenora story, she meets Roy, who's this priest, I think, and they go on a car trip. And on this car trip, we're shown the car trip first, right? So we're shown Eleanor getting into the car with Roy, and off they go, and then the narrator says, and the baby was to never see their mum again, right? So we're like, okay, something's going to happen to Lenora here. Cool. Then we cut back to Willard and what he's doing with Arvin. Obviously, lots of bad stuff. And then eventually, when it's time to go back to the Lenora storyline, we go back to before Lenora left her child in the house. So we literally go back and watch the entire scene play out again.
Wait, Lenora is Arvin's sister, so Lenora doesn't have a child.
Lenora's mum, then.
Okay,
Charlotte,
yeah.
is
Yeah.
it? No, it's not Charlotte. It's
Just refer to her as Lenora's mother, whoever she is.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So Lenora's mother, obviously, she goes off with Roy. We never see her again, and then the movie cuts back about like 10 minutes in real time before Lenora leaves her baby there, and we watch the entire thing happen again. And there's no sort of new evidence revealed or anything like that. So we literally just watch the same scene play out again for no reason. So I've
Really?
got didn't this, because we go back, we're told that Lenora's mother ran off in a previous scene where we see that happen. Then we go back and Lenora's with her child, and I'm like, what on earth has happened? Have I missed something? This is confusing, because didn't this person run off? Like, didn't they go in a car and were never seen again? This is what I've written here. Why on earth? I will I will censor myself. Why on earth did we just jump back in time? That's just deliberately confusing, and it just that's how I felt when I was watching it, because it just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
The fact that we had to go back and watch the entire thing again for no particular reason. It's just
I
that was
didn't quite pick up on that, but
yeah, it's just an editing thing, but
yeah.
it was just so stupid for me. Major flaw. So then we go to the priest. So Roy and Lenora's mum have taken a drive, and they drive out to a forest, and then Roy then proceeds to murder Lenora's mother. But that's not the real objective here. The objective for Roy is to murder his wife that he loves very much, and then to resurrect her.
Yeah.
And viewers, you may be thinking, well, that's not really possible, is it? Well, you'd be right in thinking that, because it's not. And this bonkers priest has gone and murdered his wife in the most cruel way possible, and then he tries to resurrect her. And then once he realizes he can't resurrect her, he then proceeds to be very sad about it.
That was a weird scene.
What? Like, I get that these people are supposed to be psychopaths, but how dumb do you have to be?
Yeah.
And then he just leaves his daughter, who they left behind with a family friend, and then he just goes off and and then later gets murdered by another set of psychopaths. So far in the movie, we've had 3 different sets of psychopaths, and I've put, what are the odds?
It just seems like, the whole premise of this film is the devil all the time, right? So the devil's everywhere. But I don't know, it just seemed really unrealistic, didn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely, if you can get invested in it, you can sort of forget about the fact that it's not entirely realistic, then it's going to be a fun time. But if you're looking at this from a realistic standpoint, wanting a really good thriller, this is probably not it. It feels so, I don't know, science fiction-y almost, like not like it's got aliens or anything like that, but it just doesn't seem very realistic. So we have to wait 45 minutes for Tom Holland. I've put pretty good pacing so far, so it's a pretty fast-paced movie. Lots of different stories, obviously. If you're paying attention to them, you're going to be quite entertained. 45 minutes, then Tom Holland shows up, and thank God, because if we had gone on too long without Tom Holland coming in, without the main character of the story coming in, it just would have gone worse and worse, and probably a lot of people would have
I
left.
probably wouldn't have finished it.
Yeah, so I've put something that I really liked was a specific flashback when Arvin and Lenora are talking at Lenora's mother's grave. So obviously Lenora knows her mum is dead because she was found murdered. She doesn't know who murdered her mum, and she doesn't know where her father is. So interesting. So there, Arvin and Lenora, so Tom Holland's character and Lenora, are talking in a graveyard, and Arvin has a flashback to some obviously very disturbing past images of, Willard and the dog on the cross, and then Willard killing himself because his wife dies of cancer, and just very disturbing stuff, right? And I think the flashback that Arvin has is actually really, really well done. He has like a muted flashback, so there's no sound from the flashback. It's very dark, as in like the lighting's quite dark, and we only see the flashback for a few seconds. Like, it's very quick. It's like that.
Yeah.
And there's no sound, and I think that's the best way to do a flashback. There's a lot of times where we get big flashbacks where we have sound and there's explosions and all of these things, but that's not what a realistic flashback is. So I really liked the realism there. Like, Arvin he gets prompted by the conversation that he's having with Lenora to a previous traumatic past event, and we see that event very quickly with no sound, because obviously that's what Arvin's picturing in his mind.
Yeah.
And I think that was done really well. So that was a nice thing.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add before we get to Robert Pattinson?
I was going to talk about another editing error, but I see you're going to talk more about the fight with the sheriff and Arvin later on, so I'll bring it up there if I remember to say it.
Okay, awesome. So we have to wait 54 minutes for Robert Pattinson. So if you're a Robert Pattinson fan, just get invested in the movie. He'll come
Just
later
skip the
on.
54 minutes. You haven't missed anything.
Well, I think you probably have missed a lot, but I mean, if you're just here for Robert Pattinson, then by all means. So we have to wait 54 minutes for Robert Pattinson, but that's okay because the first thing Robert Pattinson says is, "Hello there."
Hello there.
So that's great. Always like a good hello there in any
Yeah.
movie, regardless of whether
It's such a common line, but whenever I hear it, I just think of him. So
just the fact that it's his first line is in the movie is just funny to me.
yeah.
So I've put here Tom Holland is good, but Robert Pattinson just steals his thunder. And I think Pattinson sells the accent better, and I think overall he gave a better performance. Do you think there's any Oscar nominations up for grabs here?
No, absolutely not.
So
Actually,
a lot of
no.
people
I'd be lying.
a lot of people are saying that Tom Holland may be up for an Oscar nom for Best Actor for 2020. And look, in 2020, it's about the slowest year in movie history. So, and I think Tom Holland's good. I think in any other year he wouldn't be, but this year he might get a nomination. He might just.
It's films like this, right, that get nominated for, Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor, and I can most definitely see, someone like Robert Pattinson getting, Best Supporting Actor because he actually had quite a good role in this film.
Yeah, definitely.
But, obviously that's completely standalone from my opinions on this film. I wouldn't give him an Oscar for it. But then again, obviously, we also had this discussion on Instagram where the Oscars is now going to, this sort of diversity rated film, I guess. And we don't have any black actors in this film, so
exactly,
it's not going to be put up either way.
Yep. So it'll be very interesting to see whether this movie qualifies for the Best Picture category. This is by no means a contender for Best Picture, but regardless, obviously we've had the ridiculous sort of woke standards that have come out from the Oscar recently, and we haven't really touched on it, and we don't really probably want to, but we all know that the Oscars aren't really about objective filmmaking anymore. Which is such a shame because it's movies like these that doesn't have any black actors, but it makes sense that it doesn't have any black actors. Like, it's a story about a white, small, rural town in America. Like, it's not saying that it depicts the worst people possible. So it's not like, they're depicting all these white people to be fantastic people and this should be what society is like, and nothing like that. These are horrible people. They just happen to be all white because it makes sense. And for reasons like that, it might not qualify. But who knows? I don't think this will get a nomination regardless. I think Robert Pattinson might get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. That if anyone's going to get an Oscar nomination, it's going to be Pattinson.
I'm going to point you out on this right now. I think it's Pattinson rather than Patterson.
Pattinson, yeah, probably. Yeah. Have I been saying Patterson?
Maybe.
Pattinson.
You got to pick up on it, man. He's your up-and-coming favorite actor.
No, he's an up-and-coming. He's trending at the moment in terms of career-wise.
Yeah.
I think there's one good shot in this movie, but apart from that, the cinematography is pretty standard. Nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
Tom Holland does a Hawkeye kick at one stage.
What?
It's when Tom Holland goes around beating up the bullies, Eleanor's bullies, and he kicks a car door and it hits one of the bullies.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying.
We actually get one of the bullies is Drew Starkey, I think, who played quite a significant role in the Netflix original Outer Banks, and I'm not sure if you've seen that. It's kind of like a teen drama sort of
Mm.
thing. It's quite interesting though. Yeah.
Cool. Tom's a good actor, isn't he? I think when Arvin beats up those bullies, he goes back to his car
Uh-huh.
and he sort of just sits there for a couple minutes, and
Yeah.
he doesn't say anything. We just see his face, and you can sort of see the guilt
Mm.
that dawns over him, and also a bit of satisfaction, a bit of bit of evil.
At that point in time, it kind of felt like he was realizing what he's become,
Yeah,
and he's kind of filled his dad's shoes in a way.
yeah, yeah. It was a very good piece of acting from Tom Holland because he is just sitting there. There's no dialogue.
Yeah.
There's no expository lines or anything like that. He's just sitting there acting, and I think he did a really good job.
Mm.
I've got Robbo is a pedo, bahaha, lol. Because that's when we find out that Robert Pattinson is his character is a he's preying on the young girls
Yeah.
because he's using his power. So he's abusing his power, but then he's also using God as like this excuse and this
Mm.
reason to entice girls, young girls, to have sex with him, which
Yeah.
is very very dark, obviously,
It's
and
quite disturbing.
yeah, it is. A lot of things in this movie are very disturbing.
Mm.
I think Robert Pattinson does a really good job of being like subtly evil. Like
Yeah.
there's no apart from the delusion scene. Delusions. What a good scene. Oh, I love it. But apart from that scene, he doesn't really crack at any stage.
Yeah.
He's very cool. But we get hints of his absolute insanity. But I think he does a really good job of, it's there, but it's not really prevalent. You don't look at him and see a psychopath, do you? You just look at him and see somebody who's probably a bit overconfident, not a very, well-mannered person, but on the inside, he's a American psycho.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Sebastian Stan? I thought he was good, but nothing.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of screen time, did he?
No,
And for such a a high class actor,
yeah,
it kind of felt like a waste in a way.
mm,
All of the other, Robert Pattinson and Tom Holland and such had their screen time, and they were able to, you know, kind of evolve their character they were given. But I feel like Sebastian Stan's character, it was kind of, we didn't get much screen time, so we didn't learn a lot about him.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that is the reason why, for me, his storyline was the least interesting by far.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And his storyline, almost from the start, is connected to a storyline that we haven't talked about yet, which is the photographers. So we have a photographer and his wife who go hitchhiking, or they don't go hitchhiking; they go picking up hitchhikers.
Yeah.
Um, the husband takes photos of his wife while his wife has sex with the young men that they pick up on their
Yeah.
journeys, and then they kill the young guy afterwards.
Yeah.
And obviously, they take photos the entire time. And by the entire time, we mean from start to finish. Like by the
So
time
weird.
he's
Yeah.
dead, they're still taking photos. It's crazy. So that's sort of another storyline that to me wasn't very interesting. It's just like a pair of psychopaths,
Yeah.
and we're sort of supposed to feel a bit of empathy for the wife because we're sort of led to believe that she's not entirely consenting to be
Yeah,
there.
you know what it's kind of like in a way? It's kind of like Harley Quinn's character, where she started off as this this very successful psychiatrist who is in a bad place, but she's doing good in her life,
Hmm.
and she's in the wrong point at the wrong time, and she
Yeah.
meets the Joker, and she obviously turns evil. If you know anything about Harley Quinn, and it's kind of like I'm not sure what her character is, but it's kind of like how the wife is involved in this abusive, I guess, relationship with her
Yeah.
husband, and then she kind of just goes down the wrong path. And I think she started off as a waitress or something. And
Yeah.
at the start of the film, we see her. She's clean. She's got clean hair. She just looks cleaner in a way. And then towards the end of the film, she's wearing more dark makeup. I
Yeah.
think she's actually dyed her hair maybe a darker color. She's wearing black clothes. It's kind of just seeing like this sort of downward spiral of her character
Mm.
from the people she's been around.
Yeah, because we see the husband and the wife meet, don't we, very early on in the movie,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's all fun and games and just a little bit of flirting, but that's about it. And then the next thing we see is them doing this, and you're like, wow, that's a pretty major jump there.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's been quite a few years.
Yeah.
We see someone's mutilated genitalia at one stage. Character's name is Gary.
Poor Gary.
And yes, very poor Gary. Can I just? This movie's MA15, right? It's on Netflix.
How is this MA15?
I know
What?
it's MA15. I had to check twice. I'm like,
Which would
are
be
you
R in
serious?
America.
It will be R in America, but the fact that it's not R here is crazy.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that it's on Netflix basically means that anybody can watch it, really, because it's that easy to just switch your profile on Netflix and go onto mummy or daddy's
Yeah.
profile. And the fact that there should be like a warning at the start of this movie, I feel as though, but it's crazy the fact that this is not R18, because we see loads of disturbing images. There's obviously nudity and just
Blood, gore, nudity.
Yes.
It's just I couldn't think of anything else that would make this film, more of an R rating.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's kind of like, why is the Joker an MA15 plus, and then this is also an MA15 plus?
Yeah,
They
it's
just don't
crazy.
stand alongside one another.
Yeah. There's definitely, this movie goes over and beyond in terms of violence. So many people die, and we see the blood, we see the gore. People kill themselves. People get raped. This is not a nice movie.
No, definitely not.
It's so yeah. We get to then, obviously, the preacher and Eleanor have been, well, the preacher's seduced the young Eleanor, right? And the preacher says at one stage, how can I be the daddy when all I've done is spend time with the Lord? And that's just obviously an example of this preacher using God to not only excuse his actions, but to manipulate others and to manipulate God to his will.
Mm.
And it's a very disturbing scene when that happens, because obviously Eleanor is probably like, how old do you think she is? She's in high school, isn't she? So
yeah, she's quite young.
She's in high school, and she's now pregnant, and the only reason why she would be pregnant is because of the preacher. So, and the preacher denies it and says, all I've done is spend time with the Lord. So how could you be pregnant?
Mm. But obviously we've got characters like Tom Holland's character, Arvin, who are smarter than that and obviously figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, then we get the whole delusions scene.
Yes.
What it just shows that Pattinson is just a fantastic actor.
Mm.
The veins on his head, I don't know if you noticed, but he gets so mad because obviously he's found out that this young woman he's been manipulating is now pregnant, and he thinks that is a delusion.
Yeah.
So, and I think I've written the music that plays during Preston's sermon is really good. obviously he doesn't look like an evil person, but he is, and we're not really shown his true nature because he hides it so well,
Yeah.
and that makes him even more evil. And so I just really enjoyed the whole delusions.
Delusions.
So the scene where Eleanor kills herself is quite a powerful scene.
Yeah.
It only sort of really is particularly powerful because of the narration. Because again, we get to hear what the character is feeling, and so Eleanor has prepared to kill herself with a noose. She gets up, she puts her neck in the noose, and then she realizes, the narrator says, that it's okay. I don't need to kill myself because, my grandmother will still love me and she'll help me. And then she tries to get down and she slips and then she kills herself accidentally. Which is very, very dark again, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's kind of like in a way where we hear the narrator say, I think the line is something like, it's like we're in Lenora's shoes, and it says, "What am I doing? This is stupid. My grandma and my mum can help me raise my daughter," and then you kind of get this glimpse of hope that she's doing something stupid, and we're going to see her grow up again and become this mother, and then instantly, it happens. The bucket tips over, and then she's done for.
Yeah, and it sort of brings in another theme of with suicide. I've watched a documentary of the Golden Gate Bridge because obviously a lot of that's a very very heavy spot for people who, like, a lot of people jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, and some people it's such a distance that some people have actually survived jumping off.
Oh yeah.
And the documentary was sort of about interviewing those people who attempted to commit suicide, right? And they always said that sort of like a common theme was that in the first sort of second of jumping, they regretted it instantly, which I think is just such a powerful thing because obviously in cases like this with Eleanor, she didn't want to. She didn't want to go through with it, but everybody else thought that she did. So again, very dark. Not a very fun movie, this one.
Yeah.
And then the preacher, he moves on. He gets another young girl under his. He manipulates another young girl, which is just, again, we just see Preston being evil.
Yeah.
And it's sort of from this point onwards, everybody just becomes exceptionally evil all of a sudden. We sort of get a ramp up of evilness because we're going towards that third act.
Yeah, we're reaching the climax of the film.
So then Arvin and Preston have a bit of a confrontation. It's very towards the end now. So Arvin is obviously investigating Eleanor because he finds out that she was pregnant. So he starts stalking Preston. But we don't actually see Arvin stalk Preston. Instead, the camera just follows Preston during various moments.
Yeah.
And so we don't know that that's actually from Arvin's point of view until Arvin admits that he's been following Preston, which I think is done pretty well.
Yeah. It's stuff like that I didn't expect. Like, the film surprised me, which I liked.
It's pretty clever. I want to note that obviously Arvin and Preston, they're in the church having their ideology off, if you know what I mean. Like you're a bad person, and Preston's like delusions. So I think the acting between Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson there is actually really, really good, and a lot of people have been saying that online. Some of the best acting of 2020, apparently. It's been a slow year, hasn't it? I also want to note that Tom Holland, he keeps getting stuck in the back seats of cars with bad people, doesn't he?
Mm.
We've seen that in Spider-Man: Homecoming when he gets in the back seat of Michael Keaton, the Vulture's car,
Oh yeah.
and he's just in the back. Sort of, I got flashbacks to Homecoming when Tom Holland's character Arvin got in the car with the hitchhiker
Yeah.
catchers,
Yeah.
and so because that was quite funny because again he's in the back seat of the car, which means you're essentially powerless to one where you're going and
Yeah.
two, what's going to happen to you. And he gets in the wrong car, and we have the linking between Arvin's story and the husband
The
and wife
yeah.
who kill hitchhikers.
Yeah.
But Tom Holland's all right. He's got a gun, so he kills them.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. I will say Arvin is very good with the gun, isn't he? Like,
He is pretty good actually, yeah.
he's got very good aim, so he must have done a lot of practice. But that's the only sort of reason why we could say that. But he essentially doesn't miss the entire movie. But hey, he's got to have a limited amount of bullets. I guess he's got a bit of a Joker thing going there with the whole. He's got a certain amount of bullets. He needs to use them wisely, and he
Yeah.
does.
Mm.
So suddenly, Sebastian Stan and Tom Holland's characters are the only ones left.
Yeah.
Very towards the
It,
end.
it kind of seemed like we don't really explore any more than these few characters that we have, and it kind of felt like at the end how we only had the sheriff and Tom Holland's character. It was like, oh, uh, well, it kind of seems unrealistic again. Where obviously it's a small town, but it's not like the only characters we have are these two characters, and it kind of feels like the world's coming to an end in a way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's a lot of things that in this film that just kind of made me kind of zone out while I was watching it, and yeah, it's not the best film I've ever watched. Let's just say that.
I think it would have been more interesting if we saw all of the stories link in at the same time.
It felt like it was just different stories being mashed together. I think that's
Yeah.
what I take from this film. Yeah.
And it was very quickly, I almost like very sudden that I realized, wait a minute, we've only got two characters left.
Yeah.
And
That's exactly how I felt. Yeah.
And it was very, very quick to get to that stage.
Yeah.
Because obviously the preacher's dead, Eleanor's dead, her parents are dead. Who else is dead? The hitchhiker
Roy.
who we see is dead, and the husband and wife who killed him are also dead. So it's just those two left now. What did you think of, obviously, the sheriff, so Sebastian Stan's character?
Mm-hmm.
His sister was the
wife.
Yeah.
Preston's wife.
Yeah.
No, not Preston's wife. Whoever the hitchhiker.
The hitchhikers. Yeah. So now the sheriff wants to kill Arvin. Like, he doesn't want to just arrest him. He wants to kill him now.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is fair enough. Arvin's killed a lot of people. He's quite dangerous. So I guess he's not really going out of his power as a police officer, but he's sort of so emotional that he would just have killed him anyway.
Yeah, and it's kind of like in a way where you come to realize that, this is the devil's work. The devil is now inside the sheriff. And we've seen it throughout the film, and I think that's what I took from the title, is that, the devil has been at every single death we've seen in the film. From all the main characters, the devil's always been there throughout all of them. And at the end, we see the devil kind of possess, I guess, in a way, the sheriff when he's trying to kill Arvin.
Definitely. The devil is everywhere all the time. He's here and there.
Yeah.
He's in them. Do you have any other thoughts, broadly speaking, about the plot?
I was going to touch more on this scene because I was going to pick up on the the editing error that I
Oh,
found.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure at what time it is, but there's 12 minutes 30 seconds left in the film, and we see Arvin shoot the sheriff, and he kills him, and then we see the sheriff drop to the ground, right?
Yeah.
And uh, we see like a zoomed out shot. So we see Tom Holland in the background, and we see the sheriff lying on the floor, and
Yeah.
we see his shotgun at the base of a tree.
Yeah.
And then, so the scene continues on, and we see Tom Holland walk up to the sheriff with his gun, and Tom Holland goes to take the gun out of the sheriff's hand, and we actually see the gun come out of his hand.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of like, hold up, was it not just at the base of the tree? So it's basically teleported from the base of the tree to his hand somehow. And you see it all happen because he literally takes it out of his hand, and
Yeah.
then you see it lying like 6 feet away from him on the floor beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a film error that they just didn't pick up on.
That's a shame. I didn't pick up on that at all, so good
Yeah.
on you. You must have just been in that final act just looking for things to make it worse.
Yeah, they probably hey, okay. They probably just ran out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right. It happens. People make mistakes.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our music segment. There's nothing there today. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out the song that plays during Preston's sermon, because that was quite a good song, good original song.
Yeah.
To sort of heighten the mood of that brooding evil.
Yeah.
That we can associate with Preston's character. So that'll be the song that goes into the Rewatch playlist this week. If you're thinking, what is the Rewatch playlist? Well, it's a Spotify playlist that we've made. Every week we put a maximum of 2 or a minimum of 1 song from the movie we watched into this playlist. You can visit it, listen to it, or follow it by visiting the link in the YouTube description.
Yeah.
So you can go down there, check it out, have a listen. Some bangers on there, I will say. All right, let's move on to final thoughts. What did you think? Give us some final thoughts and a tier ranking, and then to finish off, I have another stupid review that we can go through.
Okay. So obviously throughout this podcast, I've been saying that I didn't like this film, and I really didn't like this film. There was just a lot of continuity errors that I found, and there was the story kind of felt mishmashed to me, and towards the end of the film, it kind of felt like, hey, we're running out of time. Let's try to conclude this somehow. And it kind of felt like the saving grace for this film was the cast and these A-list actors that we have, and that's not how a movie should be rated on, is how many good actors we have in it. And it kind of felt like that was what they were kind of relying on this film to succeed on. And we probably will see this film go up for a Academy nomination somewhere in the Emmys or something, but to me it just doesn't really deserve that title. And like I said before, main things that stand out for me in a film are the acting, which I actually found pretty good. It wasn't bad by any means. I think it was one of the best things in the film. So the acting, the music, which I didn't pick up on any of the music, and the storyline are all really major things for me which make a film. And I feel like it lacked on 2 of those things out of the 3. And for me, that is a fail on a ranking basis. So I decided to give this film a D, which is actually worse than Attack of the Clones.
Wow.
I do have my reasons for it. I actually enjoyed watching Attack of the Clones, but I didn't enjoy watching this film.
Oh my gosh.
So, like we have on our tier ranking list, a D tier is a fail. It is bad, and I don't recommend it.
Yeah. So a D tier, yeah, bad. No, don't recommend. That's our criteria. Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. So a D tier from you. Well, for me, I thought this was pleasantly and surprisingly good. I think it's one of Netflix's best original movies. But again, that doesn't say too much.
Yeah.
I think it is well cast, so I agree with you on that, and I also agree with the fact that the music is doesn't really elevate it at all. And obviously the music is a major part of it. It's very dark and it's very graphic, and so it's not for everyone. And I think at some stages it was just getting to the point of insanity. Obviously everybody is insane, but in terms of the odds of everything happening in this movie, quite low. So I think Tom Holland's great. I think he's probably not worthy of an Oscar nomination, but it's 2020, so anything can happen.
Yeah.
The ending wasn't satisfying for me.
Oh yeah.
But I enjoyed the ride. That's the thing. So I enjoyed seeing all of those stories interweave. But for me, I think this movie would have made a great TV show. I think.
Yeah, I agree with that actually.
I think if you could have gotten this cast and maybe done like a 1-season run of
a limited series,
yeah, maybe like a 5 or 6 episode series, and maybe every episode spend time with a specific group of insane individuals. I think that could have done really well. That could have been
actually
really cool.
So much better, and we could see the devil come out and kill someone else in every episode. Have something like have some more time to explore these characters.
Yeah, because that was the main thing. It's very shallow. So will I watch it again? Probably not. The only thing I might watch it for again is the performances of Robbo and Tomo, but for me, the movie's not really worth coming back to for that. But I enjoyed the ride, so I'm going to give it a B.
Oh, that's what I was thinking you'd give it. Yeah.
And so it's important to note that this is by far the most, by far the longest distance between our tier rankings we've had so far. Which is interesting. But hey, everybody likes something different.
Wait till we do the Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, come on. We all know that's an A tier. But
what?
I just want to go through another review that I think is pretty funny.
Yeah, go
on. Let me just enable ads real quick on Rotten Tomatoes. All right, I found a review that I think you would like. It's from Barry Hertz of the Globe and Mail. He's a top critic, apparently. He gave it 2 out of 4 stars. I mean, what a stupid ranking is that? 2 out of 4.
2 out of 4.
Since when do we rank things out of 4, Barry?
Oh, that's so weird.
Come on, Barry, get on our level. He says, it's a very simple review, 1 sentence, not a lot of words. Says, best to bury this devil in an unmarked grave.
Is that all?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh my god.
That's all Barry.
2 out of 4.
That's all Barry has for us today.
What? What does that even mean?
Just best to bury this movie in an unmarked grave and not come back to it. But I mean, I had a fun time, so whatever. Each to their own, I guess.
This film.
We'll let Barry go on with his life.
That's basically what he's saying.
Oh, well, I mean, this was fun. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. As always, we appreciate the support very much.
Next week, what are we doing?
Enola Holmes, I guess.
Yes, Enola Holmes, which is also a Netflix original film, which I'm quite excited for, actually.
I've never engaged with anything Sherlock Holmes related, so...
okay.
So it'd be cool to see Henry Cavill, I guess. But it's going to be interesting because... Yeah, I haven't. Are you interested in Sherlock Holmes? Anything like that? Seen any of those other movies?
I used to watch the Robert Downey Jr. series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be interesting because I've seen nothing. So interesting perspectives from both of us there. Right. Yours, if you'd like to follow us on Instagram, you can do that by finding us at the Rewatch Pod. We'll be we've just announced our next episode, so we'll be not announcing that here shortly. If you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, just search The Rewatch on YouTube. Bye for now.
See ya.